Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice, Edward Cullen from Twilight. All of these lovely gentlemen have been given to us, the people who enjoy romance. But I wondered about people from Japan. Who do they think of? What characters do they think of when thinking about romance? So I asked my friends. And the answers were Orihime and Hikoboshi, and Shinichi Kuro and Ran Mori. Any Japanese person watching this can decide whether they agree or not. But for me, personally, there is only one man I can think of, and that is Hikaru Genji. For Heian era nerds and people who love Japanese history, the Tale of Genji, of course, needs no introduction, but for my mother who is watching, allow me to explain a little bit. Basically, the story follows Genji as he journeys through his life being the most beautiful man to have ever walked the earth. Anybody was reading it. Correction, anybody who lived in the capital was reading it, those who had access to it. Not everyone got the chance to read it, but if you were cool at the time, you were reading the Tale of Genji. Even Lady Sarashina, she wrote in her diary, "In my impatience, I got a statue of the healing Buddha built in my own size. When no one was watching, I would perform ablutions and stealing into the altar room, would prostrate myself and pray fervently. Oh, please arrange things so that we may soon go to the capital where there are so many tales, and please let me read them all." But today, we are not going to talk about the entirety of the Tale of Genji because that would take way too long, and I don't want to put you through the torture of that. So today instead we'll just be talking about Genji's lovers, or the people that catch his affections, whether that's a blessing or a curse. I'll be going through this list in the chronological order that he met the women, and not the order of which he shared bedrobes with them, if you know what I mean. So let's get into it. I want to make it clear, actually, before I begin this video, that Genji often takes advantage of women, and reading it through a modern lens, it's obviously there's 1,000 years that separate us from this novel, okay, so the way of thinking is completely different, so it's very important to have that mindset going into it. I mean, to me, Genji is a massive creep, but he's like the perfect man, I guess, to a Heian era lady that we know of. So yeah, we're going into this with that kind of mindset. Let's just do it. Fujitsubo is Genji's first and longest love. They first meet when she comes to court. She's about 16 or 17 and Genji is only 4, so 12 years difference, but she's brought to court because she looks like the consort who just passed away. That's consort Kiritsubo, and that is Genji's mother. So she so resembles her, but apparently her beauty even surpassed that. When Genji is 18, he comes across a young girl called Murasaki, who is 10 at the time. She is Fujitsubo's niece and constantly reminds him of her. So he seeks to adopt the child. I say adopt, but we're talking about grooming here. So he seeks to adopt Murasaki and raise her into be the perfect wife. And throughout their relationship, it seems that she is a substitute for Fujitsubo. After meeting Murasaki for the first time, he gets the feeling that he longs to see Fujitsubo. So he travels to her house and sneaks in with the help of her lady-in-waiting called Onmyodo, and takes her unawares, if you know what I mean. It seems though that Genji was never allowed to stay long when visiting Fujitsubo.
His meetings with her were so brief, however they merely intensified the pain of his lonely yearnings. Were these trysts real, or were they a dream? He could no longer tell.
Then, after this meeting, Fujitsubo becomes pregnant with Genji's child. And that's actually very awkward because in only 2 chapters' time does she be named Empress, and that is Empress to the Emperor. The Emperor who is Genji's father Yeah, she starts to freak out.
She was determined to put an end to their relationship, since she found the prospect of continuing to meet him extremely unpleasant and distressing.
As I said, Fujitsubo is named as Empress. The Kokudin consort, she is another of the Empress consorts. She becomes insanely jealous because her son is next in line for the throne, and she fears that with Fujitsubo's slow rise to power, that she's going to overtake that and take the power away from her son. But little does anyone know the baby is Genji's, but nobody knows that apart from those two. So from here the emperor passes away and Fujitsubo cannot take the guilt. She does give birth. She steps away from the capital and becomes a nun so that she can, one, completely avoid Genji and his advances. This man has caused her too much stress. She also wants to get away from the Kokinen consort to show that she's not actually a threat to her. She doesn't have any interest in political power. Eventually her son actually does become emperor as Emperor Reise. That's her son and Genji's son, but everybody thinks it's the emperor's son, okay? She still struggles daily with the guilt and she passes away at 37. So how was she described?
Such extraordinary delicate beauty, the luxuriant thickness of her hair, the shape of her head and face, the cascading tresses flowing down her back. Together her features exuded a lustrous elegance that was peerless.
Thinking of Fujitsubo's life, I can confidently put her in the curse section because meeting Genji, he forced himself on her and she became pregnant, and then she just was overcome by this insane level of guilt. The latter portion of her life was basically lived in like fear of being found out about this great big her great big secret. Meeting Genji for Fujitsubo was a curse, not a blessing. Aoi is Genji's principal wife, and oh my god, does he hate the woman. He describes her time and time again as cold and unyielding and just really too formal to be his wife. The only time that he shows a little bit of care and feeling towards her is when she's dying and is dead. So let's get into it. Aoi is a high-ranking lady who often feels pain caused by Genji's frequent affairs. There's an age gap between them of about 4 years, which she feels very keenly, and Genji often comments on how haughty this makes her appear. Genji rarely bothers to visit his wife's residence, and when he does deign to make an appearance and grant them a chance to stand within his shining presence, it seems he has more fun talking to her ladies-in-waiting. The pregnant Aoi and Lady Rokujo, who is one of Genji's lovers, they meet at a festival and they begin to have a kuruma arasoi. Translated, kuruma arasao literally means like car battle. The space in the streets of Heian-kyo was very limited for when you wanted to see a festival procession, so you had to fight for the best position. There are countless mentions of car battles in contemporary literature where the attendees of one carriage would fight the attendees. When I say fight, I'm not talking like fisticuffs, I'm talking like a verbal argument kind of situation. In the case of Aoi and Rokujo here, it seems that Aoi's attendants simply lift up Rokujo's carriage and move her to the back so that she has a worse view and Aoi can see the festival better. This is their first meeting. The next meeting is when the Rokujo lady possesses Aoi. So when she possesses her, it is due to Rokujo's really dark and wretched feelings from being, I guess, ignored by Genji, but also jealousy from that incident with Aoi. So from there, the possession makes Aoi really, really ill, like close to death ill.
A malignant spirit was causing concern for everyone at the Minister of the Left's Sanjo residence. Genji's wife was suffering terribly, and under the circumstances, it was not appropriate for him to be going around visiting other women.
Aoi goes into labour during her possession and she asks for Genji.
Her long, luxuriant black hair, which had been pulled back and tied up, stood out in a vivid contrast to the white of her maternity robes. She was always so prim and proper that Genji had never found her special elegance all that attractive. Now, for the first time, as she lay there in her vulnerable, helpless condition, she struck him as not just precious, but voluptuous.
For a moment, Ao's face transforms into that of the Lady Rokujo's. She then gives birth to a boy who is named Yugiri, and she passes whilst Genji is away at the palace.
The smoke that rose from the funeral pyre is now a cloud, but which one I know not, for the sky is veiling the feelings of loss.
For Aoi was meeting Genji a blessing or a curse. I mean, she passed away at the hands of one of Genji's jealous lovers, that had the hands of her spirit. So I guess I'm going to put this down as curse. Very early on in the novel, we meet the governor of Io's wife. She is married to the governor of Iyo and he is away a lot of the time in his province, so she's left alone at her estate. Due to a directional taboo, Genji heads to this estate to stay the night. As said in the Cambridge History of Japan, right, let me read it. It was thought that certain celestial forces and bodies whose movement was carefully followed determined spatial zones that should not be crossed by people at certain times and in certain directions. So when the nobility was intending to travel in one direction, they would speak with an expert. That expert might warn them that actually there's a god in the direction of their home and they just can't return that day. That is fine by me, thought a lot of the courtiers, because they'll just spend their evening somewhere else. In the case of Genji, he uses this a lot to go and make some lady friends. During his stay, Genji overhears female voices, and as Genji does, he sneaks up and peeks through. Now, the lady on the inside, she's calling out for one of her ladies in waiting, who's called Chujo. Now, Chujo also means captain, and that is the rank that Genji was at that time. So he heard Chujo and he was like, hey, I guess that could be me. So I'll go inside. So that's what he does. He steps inside to where the ladies are sleeping, swoops up the governor of Io's wife and takes her to another room. Now, depending on which academic you ask, there's varying opinions based on whether the fact that they actually slept together. Some people say they did, some people say she managed to hold fast against him. It really depends on who you ask. But my personal opinion is that they didn't sleep together, because Genji acts in such a way that it's almost like he has blue balls. He's complaining so much. He wanted to sleep with her. She was like, no thank you. And then he just is a little bitch about it for the rest of the time that she's mentioned in the novel. Throughout Genji's interactions with the governor of Io's wife, he actually uses her little brother as a page so that he can go between delivering messages and such. The little boy, Kogimi, he often feels put out by his sister's refusal to bed with his master. It's quite embarrassing for him. He's trying so hard to set this up. He doesn't want to disappoint his new master. So Genji tries multiple times to see her, and as that fails, he turns to the little brother.
Alright then, at least I haven't been abandoned by you. Genji had the boy lie down beside him. It is said that because Genji's splendid youthful appearance delighted the boy, he found the lad far more lovable than his frigid sister.
And the chapter ends there. There's no further mention in the novel about pederasty or any explicit homosexuality. Back to the wife of the governor of Iyo, because Genji is not done. One night he spies her playing a game of Go with her stepdaughter, whose name I've forgotten. As they settle down for the night, Genji sneaks in, and the wife of the governor of Iyo, she flees the scene, but as she's running away, she sheds her outer robe and leaves it lying on the ground. Genji likens her to a cicada who has molted its shell, hence the name that she's been given, Utsusemi. Genji obviously takes this robe as a prize. Utsusemi's feelings towards Genji are quite confusing. In one moment she's dreading the thought of him, she hates the idea that he won't leave her alone, but then in the next she's thinking that she hopes the robe he took didn't smell like sweat. So I think even she doesn't understand her own feelings. Eventually, she moves to Iyo province with her husband, and then after his death, she becomes a nun and gets taken into one of Genji's estates.
Resigned to their destinies in this way, how could they reproach Genji for being cold to them? They had nothing to worry about or feel lonely over. His lady of the molted cicada shell pursued the religious life of a nun without distraction.
When it comes to blessing or a curse for Utsusemi, I find it really hard to put her in either one. Meeting Genji wasn't necessarily a curse towards her, like she didn't die like some other people did, but he did cause her a lot of torment and bother to begin with. But then also, he takes her in after she becomes a nun and allows her to just go about her nunly life without any interruption. And I know that Genji sort of collects women and creates a kind of living lady museum so that you can just enjoy their beauty, but she still has somewhere to live and is taken care of, and I guess, you know, if she didn't have that, she might have been in a precarious position, so I'm more inclined to put Utsusemi in the blessing column. But let's go back to the moment when Utsusemi fled. So she left, Genji sneaks in, realizes that this is not the lady he was expecting to see. Genji is not one to let an opportunity like this go, so he wakens the girl, gives her the whole like Genji spiel of like, I've been dying to meet you, even though he's probably never thought of her before that day. Poor Nokima no Ogi was unable to see through the lies of the Shining Prince, but it seems that she was like super into it, so I'm gonna put her in blessing, okay? It doesn't seem like her life was ruined by meeting Genji. She's mentioned a couple of chapters down the line talking about her wedding prospects. I think Genji says that something like, even though she has wedding prospects, she'll never turn me down, or something big-headed like that. But still, she had her night of fun, and hey, maybe one night with the Shining Prince is a blessing. Yugao is the most compelling character in the whole of the Tale of Genji. Before we even begin, I'm putting her here, in the curse section. Meeting Genji killed her, the end. Let's get into it. Genji is going to drop into the home of his former wet nurse and spy some beautiful white flowers that adorn the fence of the neighbouring household. These flowers are called evening faces, or Yugao, hence the name of the character. One of his retinue goes to pick one of the flowers, but before he can do so, a beautiful young woman comes out of the house and speaks to him.
It isn't elegant to give someone a flower with a stem attached. Please place the one you picked on this and present it to your lord.
It was a fan inscribed with a poem.
In the dazzling light of pearly dew, is it not you who adds such lustre to the bloom of evening faces?
Well, that was that. Genji was completely lost to love, and his most trusted retainer, Koremitsu, he thought the exact same thing the readers were probably thinking, and that was, here we go again, Koremitsu thought, the usual flirtation, what a bother. And Genji's reply to the poem?
I long to draw near, to learn for sure, was that glimmering evening face, briefly glimpsed in twilight, really you?
After doing some digging, Genji finds out this woman, Yugao, she is one of To no Chujo's long-lost lovers, one that he lamented losing. This makes her even more compelling to Genji because now it's someone that his best friend lost. She must be a real gem, right? She also has a child fathered by To no Chujo. One night, he steals her away to a secret dwelling and they, I assume, make love all night and only take breaks to share poetry beneath the moon.
Flower's face opens to twilight dew during a chance encounter and exchange to show itself to you by the wayside. The dew on evening faces that seem to me so radiant, an illusion in the twilight.
As they slept, Genji sees a vision of Rokujo's spirits talking about her jealousy. And then she possesses Yugao and her spirit is killing her.
He watched his lover slip away helplessly until he couldn't bear it any longer, whereupon he cradled her body in his arms and pleaded unashamedly, "Please, my love, come back. You mustn't do such a terrible thing to me."
Genji's distraught. His lady of the evening faces was killed. At this point, I have mentioned Lady Rokujo twice now. Both times were to do with malignant spirits coming in, possessing someone, killing them. And this might lead you to believe that Lady Rokujo is the villain of the Tale of Genji, but I don't know if I necessarily believe that. Fujiwara no Ashu will always put the blame on Genji. That's why I'm putting Rokujo here. By the time that Genji had met Yugao, he was actually in an already established relationship with Lady Rokujo. But he had begun to lose interest in her. It was so obvious to everyone around them that even one day, as Genji was getting ready to leave, he was rushing early in the morning to leave the Lady Rokujo's apartment, and one of her ladies-in-waiting stopped him and recited the following poem.
Why make such haste to leave when morning fog has not yet lifted? Is it that your heart is no longer drawn to the flower here?
So far, we have mentioned that the jealous spirit of the Lady Rokujo has possessed not only Yugao, but also Genji's principal wife, Aoi. So what happens next? Her daughter, Akikonomu, is chosen to be the high priestess of Ise, and so she goes to Ise with her daughter. Ise Shrine is an exceptionally important shrine that worked to protect the capital. As it was a little too far from Heian-kyo, the emperor would send a young girl in his stead. She would be nominated. She had to be related to the emperor and a virgin. So she would worship Amaterasu in his stead. Whenever an emperor abdicated or passed away, then that girl would return and a new sayo would be chosen. Off to Ise, Lady Rokujo goes. After many years in Ise, she returns to the capital with her daughter, and she's quite ill, so before she passes away, she goes to Genji and she says, "Genji, please look after my daughter Akikonomu, and also do not have a romantic relationship with her." And then she dies, and that's the end. Until chapter 35, until her jealous spirit overhears Murasaki and Genji talking about her.
She was no doubt justified in resenting my behaviour toward her, but eventually she became too obsessive, so deeply bitter that it was too painful to bear.
Suddenly, you guessed it, Murasaki becomes ill. She is violently possessed by some unknown evil spirit, and then this spirit eventually possesses a page girl, and she speaks.
What truly impedes my release from suffering is my lingering desire for you, which has filled me with bitter resentment. I harbour no deep hatred of her, but I possessed her because the protection that the Buddha and the gods bestow on you is so powerful that I feel as though I am kept at a great distance and cannot approach you.
Murasaki survives the night, but the spirit never leaves her. She always suffers and dies a few years later. The resentment of Lady Rokujo has caused the death of 3 women now. Was Genji's charm so powerful that it caused her to manifest this jealous spirit? I still stand by putting her in the cursed column because I just feel that... Listen, I feel bad for her, okay? If I met Genji, if Genji told me he loved me and then was writing me these beautiful poems and like visiting me at night, and then all of a sudden he suddenly grew bored with me, I would go insane too, okay? Up to this point, we've discussed Fujitsubo, Aoi, Utsusemi, Kogimi, Nokiba no Ogi, Yugao, and the Lady Rokujo. Let's take a look at the columns. It It seems that the curse column is winning, and I am not surprised because wherever Genji goes, he seems to break some hearts. Thank you so much for watching. Join me in the next video of part 2 so we can go through the rest of Genji's women and see which wins. I'm guessing curse. Please like the video and subscribe, and also be wary of Lady Rokujo's spirit. Bye!